So on top of getting a rather interesting structure deck yesterday,
my disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
We also managed to get a whole bunch of brand new level up rewards, which for the most part were pretty good, excluding a couple of the not so great cards. So for today's video, I thought I'd showcase what I believe to be the most impactful of these brand new rewards. So without further ado, let's check out some Star Wars. So here's today's deck list. Now just a reminder before I get to the deck list, if you guys are enjoying today's video, want to see more content just like this in the future, especially if you're a returning viewer, so apparently about 35% of you watching this are even subscribed to the channel, meaning 65% of you haven't even subscribed yet. So if you guys are enjoying this kind of content, or see more deck lists from me in the future, or more videos from me in the future, remember to leave a like on this video and consider subscribing to the channel down below. Alright, let's jump into this deck list. So today's deck list is obviously going to be Cosmo. So what exactly is new with this archetype? Well, we just got given two brand new cards for the archetype, one of which of course being your third copy of Cosmo Dark Destroyer, which is very important for this deck list considering there isn't really any consistent ways to search cards in this deck, considering of course we only had two copies of this, and your main searcher is your Cosmo Tin Can, which just gives your opponent the choice of one of three random cards to add to your hand during the end phase. So you're not going to hit this card very often via this, but now thankfully we have a third copy of this, so you should open this thing way more often than before, and you don't have to rely on a gamble as much. Alright, then we have your Cosmo Dark Eclipse, which is of course the brand new card for the archetype. Alright, cannot be targeted by opponent's card effects. During either player's turn when a trap card is activated, you can banish one Cosmo monster from your graveyard. To negate the activation, if you do, destroy that card. And you will notice here, nowhere does it state once per turn. So this thing, if you get it on the field and you have some Cosmos in your graveyard, which is fairly common considering your trap card is going to put Cosmos in your graveyard, your Cosmo Tin Can is going to put your Cosmos in the graveyard, even before your opponent destroys some of your cards, you're going to have some Cosmos in the graveyard anyway. And this thing, as long as you have them in the graveyard, you can keep banishing them for every single trap card your opponent tries to activate, not once per turn, and negate all of them. This thing is fantastic against any trap card deck whatsoever, if you can get it into your hand. Alright, then we have the second effect. If this card destroys a battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from the graveyard, add one level 8 or lower Cosmo monster from your deck to your hand. So keep note, this thing is only adding to your hand, which is of course different to your other Cosmo monsters, which when they're destroyed, they float into other Cosmos to summon them straight to the field. This one does not float straight to the field, it will only search adding cards from your deck to your hand, so keep that in mind. As for the rest of the deck list, obviously it's all just your stock standard Cosmo stuff, with nothing actually new here outside of course the brand new Eclipser, so without further ado, let's just jump into some gameplay showcasing this deck list in action. Alright, so let's jump into today's replays. So I'm just going to apologise in advance because obviously I got all these replays inside of King of Games, and as you guys probably know, King of Games, especially late month, is just filled with a bunch of memers and people that just, because obviously there's no demotion in King of Games, they just play whatever the hell they feel like because they just don't care about losing. So it just ends up with a lot of shitty games and shitty quality games, and becomes really hard to judge how good a deck list is, because obviously when I'm playing against a bunch of memes and garbage stuff, it's really hard to judge, is this deck list actually good? I don't know, this deck list felt pretty good to me. I don't think it's like a top tier deck list or anything like that, it just felt kind of good, but it's so hard to judge. Alright, it's definitely coggable, I'll go with that. Alright, so normal summon Tin Can, revealing 3 cards, my opponent grabs one at random, sends the rest to the graveyard. I'm not really sure about revealing this thing on turn 1 without having another Cosmo in hand, at least another boss monster in hand. I think it's probably pretty bad, so I think I probably shouldn't have revealed this, I don't know. Especially when I had 2 lots of destruction, I probably should have, because this thing, unlike the other ones, it doesn't float like the other ones do, so it's kind of risky searching for this one turn 1. I'm not really sure. If you have a second Cosmo boss monster in hand though, you can definitely search for it. Alright, so he's going to make sure this card can't be activated with his Fire Formation. I'm going to swap this card over ready so I can use this card as soon as he normal summons. Summons out the main searcher for the deck list, so before it can search, I'm going to destroy my own Cosmo to banish any card on the field as a non-targeting effect. This trap card's actually insane, man. Non-target banish, and it can banish graveyard as well. Alright, floating into my Slip Rider, banishing his back row, hitting him in the face, and of course Farm Girl can search when it does damage. And my opponent is very, very, very dead. Yeah, this trap card is so goddamn good. It's annoying this kind of once per turn, so if you open 2 of them, that can feel pretty bad, but it's still a pretty, it feels weird cutting too many copies of it just because it's such a strong trap card. Especially when there's a bunch of just random ass non-target stuff floating around like Lunalight and stuff. Speaking of Lunalight, if you're wondering why my name is Lunar Enjoyer, it's because I was trying out Ancient Warriors with the Lunalight character whilst playing with the Lunalight field mat and the Lunalight sleeves, and just trying to bait my opponent into thinking I was playing Lunalight. I was just wondering how many people I could come across that would not summon extra deck on turn 1 because they're worried about Lunalight Fusion. Turns out not many, most people didn't give a shit, but I was testing that out. I was pretending to be a Lunalight player. Alright, so opponent's going to swing in, Tin Can, going to swapping over for Slip Rider, popping some back row, popping a second back row, and summoning out a card from my deck. Alright. Bottomless Trap Hole, don't particularly care too much about that one. Because obviously this thing can then chain to it to make itself immune to destruction. Unless this thing destroys the card that it's trying to banish, it doesn't actually get to use the banishing part of it. So this card immune to destruction, doesn't care about the trap card. And of course, Farm Girl swinging gets a search. Swap it over and my opponent is dead on field. I could even have swapped this card over for another boss monster as well, who was very, very dead. Alright. On to replay number 3. Yeah, this R-Type seems to be extremely matchup dependent. I think it could do well in the tournament, but only if you sort of roll luckily on the dice rolls to hit the matchups where they rely very much on targeting effects. Like, I think this thing against maybe a Live Twin player, if they don't draw IDP, they're going to struggle quite a bit because they have no outs to just a big untargetable boss monster. But against a lot of other matchups where they might have outs to targeting effects or non-targeting stuff, it's going to feel a hell of a lot worse. Especially if they can consistently get over 3k, then can just sort of beat over your monsters, I guess. That does let your monsters float, so I don't know. It's a very weird archetype, this one. But hey, at least it's now a much more consistent archetype after the 2 new releases, so we got that going for it. Alright, so normal summon, gonna be swapping it, paying 1,000 life points. This is, by the way, why I'm using Switcheroo with the R-Type. An R-Type that's obviously playing a bunch of high levels and a bunch of low levels that you kind of want to get a good mix of in your opening hand. It does feel pretty good to be able to use Switcheroo whenever you feel like it, if you ever draw a copy of your Wicked Witch. Because then you just grab whatever card in your hand, sort it back into the deck list, and grab another card. Because this thing just pays 1,000 life points to use its effect, so there you go. I think Switcheroo is actually a great tech for this. Alright, gonna swap it over to hitting my opponent in the face for 3,000. He's gonna Dark Hole me. Like I care, I'm just gonna float into something else. Pop some more back row. If anything, that was probably more useful for me. Alright, grabbing Red Eyes Fusion. Pulsing my card. Gonna use my Cosmojo in response. Banishing a card in my opponent's graveyard, because this card can do that. Summoning out another Wicked Witch. Goes for a Comet Dragon. I'm of course going to swap it over whenever I feel like it, summoning out my other Destroyer, popping a card on the field, and my opponent is going to meet a 3rd Destroyer this game. Tries to compost me, I can just swap that shit over. This deck is actually just one of the best decks into back row, because most of the back row in this game is targeting, and a lot of the stuff in this deck list can just dodge the targeting effects or summon out boss monsters that are just immune to targeting, so... And now we have a boss monster that actually just negates trap cards outright, so... Yeah, this R-Type feels pretty goddamn strong into like I said, specific matchups. If your opponent's playing like a trap card archetype, it can be pretty strong against that. Depending on what trap cards they have, of course. Even IDP can sometimes feel pretty good, considering your monsters, they banish themselves to summon, so sometimes you just don't actually have any monsters in grave for IDP. Alright. I cannot read much of this guy's name, I can read the end of it, which means absolutely nothing as far as I know. No idea what any of this is. Alright. Wicked Witch, swing in. Unfortunately, he normal summoned a Blue Eyes. I don't actually know if I knew this was a Blue Eyes or not. I think I just swung into it assuming it was a stone. I'm not used to people setting Blue Eyes, so that was probably a bit of a dumb play by me, but anyway. Alright, he's going to try to target my monster. I'm going to swap it over. If you're wondering why I didn't swap this card over on the previous turn to target this back row, it's because I think it's generally better when you have a Cosmojo on the field to pass the turn, just let your opponent potentially activate the trap card into response to this thing. Because if this card isn't active, if my opponent used a trap card on this thing and removed it, I wouldn't be able to swap it over beforehand. So in this case, I'm going to target his back row. He's not going to swap it over anyway, because obviously the Crackdown would stop that. Banishing his monster from the field before he can go into a Synchro. Alright, Monster Reborn reviving. I'm going to swap this over beforehand so he can't get the search from this, and if he tries to, I'll pop his monster. It's not too scared because I've got a Crackdown active anyway, so... Probably should have put this thing in defense, but it doesn't matter, this thing can't attack anyway, and I'm going to steal his other Blue Eyes. Alright, Dark Lady can swap itself over, Destroyer popping his monster, and don't quite have lethal because obviously this thing can't attack, but yeah, opponent's just dead anyway. Alright, on to our next player. I am Micro. Alright, Sartorius. I forgot what this guy was playing. Actually, this might be the other trap card player, actually. Because in the final replays a Galaxy Eyes player. This is the other, yeah, it's the trap card guy. Alright, so summoning a Wicked Witch, getting a search, or paying 1,000 life points, sorry, to Switcheroo. He's going to target my card, and as soon as he tries to use the effect of it, I'm going to swap my card over. Keep in mind, by the way, when you go against this particular trap card, there's a bit of a tangent, but this card, it's a targeting effect, but it doesn't actually, you actually have to use the effect once you flip it face up, and this card is a hard once per turn, so generally you want to wait for this thing to use the effect to bounce your monster, or flip your monster face down, your Book of Moon effect. You don't just use it immediately upon the card's activation, because they don't have to use it immediately. And then it might have a second one face down, then you just completely screwed yourself over, so... Wait for this thing to try to use its effect before swapping it over. Alright. I hope what I just said made sense, because I'm so bad at explaining things. Alright. Opponent tried to summon out the Altergeist to bounce my card to hand, of course. I don't care about that, my card's untargetable, so good luck with that. Tried to use Paleozoic to try to banish this thing, that also not quite how that card works. Yeah, I think this is one of those matchups where a back row heavy matchup with all targeting effects. What are you gonna do, man? You're just not gonna be able to target anything in this deck. It's a shame we didn't get any good replays showcasing the negates from the new boss monster. It just doesn't really come up all that often because this archetype doesn't have like an innate search that lets you grab a hold of the card super consistently. So you just don't get to see it doing its negating stuff very often. Sending a couple of cards, summoning out my lady because I can negate some stuff. Even if my opponent has like a Book of Moon or something to try to hit this thing, I could at least swap it over for a copy of Eclipser before he does so. MST's my back row, which does feel pretty bad. Alright, Shuffle Reborn. This guy had like a pretty insane opening, actually. Most decks would actually die to this. Alright, summons out a Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon to negate everything on the field. I'm going to destroy that and negate it. He has another Reborn to bring it back. So now he can Exceed Summon, of course. Shuffle Reborn for an extra draw. Goes for a copy of the Photon Dragon to pop my monster, which is fine because I can just swap it over. Summon out Eclipser, who of course is not targetable, so even if he did summon out the other Galaxy Eyes monster, he can't even target this thing. He just tries to beat over it, which is nice because it gives me a search. Grabbing my Destroyer. Alright, normal summon. He tries to compulse me. I don't care, I'm going to swap over. I think he realizes this back row is useless anyway. It's target effects. Pop his card, set my Crackdown, and pass. He draws some more back row, don't care, because his likelihood of his back row being useful is very goddamn low, and he just dies. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today's replays. Hope you guys enjoyed them. If you did, remember to leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I might do another video on some of the other new level up rewards that were released. I'm not particularly sure which ones I do videos on, but there were quite a few. Maybe I'll test out the fire hand thing and see if that's at all viable. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, remember to leave a like, subscribe. Hope to see you in the next one. Laters.
Hey, big brother, can I watch SpongeBob?
Shut up, Mokuba. I'm busy flagging YouTube videos to compensate for the fact that I have an extremely small penis.
Oh.